Hey, everybody. Super excited for this episode of Roll Radio. With me today, I have a legendary visual storyteller with me, writer, director, editor, producer, filmmaker extraordinaire, Justin Staples with us today.
What's up, everybody? What's up, Bradley? Excited to do Roll Radio.
What's going on, Staple? Just
Excited.
for those that don't know, Justin shot, most of the folks in hip hop and pop culture that we listen to today, A$AP Rocky, Post Malone, Playboy Cardi, XXXTentacion, Katy Perry, Ozzy Osbourne, Zane Lowe, Drake, Lil Pump, just to name a few. Before we get into all that, Justin, I just want you to talk to me about your upbringing, specifically the things that drew you into visual arts.
Yeah, I grew up in Durham, North Carolina, a small town. Duke's there, UNC is there as well. But it really happened for me when I lived shortly in Princeton, New Jersey. My mom was a professor, so we were always living in college towns like Duke and Princeton. She taught public policy. When I was in Princeton, its proximity to New York City led me to meet a lot more creative people than we had in North Carolina. And one of my neighborhood friends, his dad worked at an advertising agency in the city. I was probably about 11 or 12 at that time. But his proximity to advertising meant he got one of the first iMacs. He really was onto the early Apple consumer facing products like iMovie and the very first iMac and that mini DV technology that came with the iMac. So when my neighbor got that first iMac, with iMovie installed, that was the first time I was really introduced to any sort of digital media. I was probably 11, 10 at the time, but we went out and made our own like horror films with the mini DV camera, would edit them on iMovie. We did a lot of stop animation with clay models and action figures. And just seeing that all came to life really excited me. I would spend hours and days doing those little animations, just like in the basement or wherever with my friends. And that continued for a long time, and I eventually moved back to North Carolina for high school, where kids were more into like music there because we had Chapel Hill and Merge Records and all that, and not so much into film. But I hit the ground running and was making rap music videos by age 13 and short form documentary films with my friends about their bands and what they were doing, and was really inspired by the director David Gordon Green, if you know him, who went to North Carolina School of the Arts. He's most famous probably now for Pineapple Express and Eastbound and Down. He came from this crew with Jody Hill, Danny McBride, their cinematographer named Tim Orr, and David Gordon Green. And this was this kind of rat pack at North Carolina School of the Arts, really making it out of that scene and doing at the time a film called All the Real Girls and a film called Foot Fist Way, which really inspired me. That led to Eastbound and Down and Your Highness and Pineapple Express and The Righteous Gemstones. And David Gordon Green is helming the Halloween franchise now, which is very successful. And just seeing them made me feel like I could really be a director out of North Carolina. They had a very distinct North Carolina flavor to them, very calm and mellow ambient vibes and flannel and just kind of the vibes out there. He also did a really great film called George Washington that everyone should check out.
Yeah,
that's a great one on Criterion. And that was my big inspiration. I wanted to be just like him. I wanted to be like David Gordon Green and make kind of Terrence Malick-esque visual poetry along those lines, and started doing that. Got by the time I was 15, 16, I got a grant to shoot a short on 16 millimeter film, or it was actually on 8 millimeter, and shot it myself and edited it into film festivals and got into some film festivals and had that screened all over the country. That's called Man's World, that we shot like in the woods with my friends. And that just snowballed into just like an obsession. I was just constantly had the mini DV camera on me that my parents kind of bought for like Christmas memories and things like that. But eventually I saved up, I bought my own iMac. I think at the time they were just like $599, maybe $600, and bought a camera and got it going. My parents and family weren't really into the arts, but my dad played a lot of music. So I was in bands growing up, and we tried to do a lot of visual components to our music. We were in like a ska band, and we did merch, and we were in like an emo band and stuff like that. And eventually my cousin who lives in Florida turned me on to hip hop. I stayed with him when I was probably in 7th grade, and he made me a mix CD that had Company Flow, LP, Madlib, Quasimodo, Jay Dilla, Slum Village. And I had never heard anything like that stuff. And when I got that mix CD from him, I just played that for like years and years. And LP and Madlib and Dilla continue to be my favorites. And I just met a lot of great rappers in Durham. You know, Little Brother and Ninth Wonder are from there, so there is a scene. And Ninth Wonder was kind of the top in that scene, so I never worked with him. But a lot of people under him, you know, I was making videos, and so by the time I was 17, that's when I started applying to college. And I was ready with like a reel. I had a reel ready already. There was no, it's important to remember, there's no YouTube back then, which I always think about. There's no platform for digital media like that. We were just, Apple kind of had their like cloud system you could upload, because they had QuickTime, you could upload QuickTime movies, and that's what we would do. But I made my reel and tried to make a website with the Apple products, and that's where I got into it. And taking a lot of photos too. We would take a lot of Polaroids. I was really into like Dash Snow and Ryan McGinley and a lot of those artists you see in Vice magazine. And that's pretty much what solidified it, those influences. And I saw Gummo at an early age too. And I just was obsessed with that movie and Harmony Korine's whole aesthetic, and wanted to be just like him when I grew up.
Absolutely. The influences are crazy, from like Terrence Malick, David Gordon Green, Little Brother, and then Harmony Korine, of course, with, you know, Gummo Kids. And yeah, it's cool. You see it in a lot of your work. I want to get into that in a little bit, but just in the interim, take us to UChicago. You know, obviously you're passionate about film. You studied there. Why pursue that with economics, and how has that sort of shaped your career so far?
Yeah, when I was applying to college, you know, I always knew I wanted to go to college. It was kind of like a way out of Durham and Chapel Hill area. But a lot of my friends were going to UNC Chapel Hill, which is a fantastic state school and incredible. And I kind of thought that was going to be the path for me. I ended up getting in, but also my parents encouraged me to apply to out of state schools. And, you know, your college counselor at high school shows you that chart, like GPA over SAT, and where like the average admission is. And I was like, way, way low. And they were like, you're not going to get into anywhere, bro. Like, good luck. I was looking at like Occidental and like UChicago. And those were my two. I was like, I loved Occidental because my buddy, the same friend who I'm talking about, is Max Reed's brother, the very prolific Gawker editor-in-chief for years and prolific journalist. He's a good friend of mine, and he went to Occidental. So I knew I needed another way in. I was like, I love UChicago. I had visited UChicago, and by that time, I was obsessed with Cap'n Jazz, the late '90s emo band with Tim Kinsella and American football. And I just wanted to go to Chicago and make like rock music and math rock music. And I went out there. Duke University has a gallery, has a museum called the Smart Museum, or I'm sorry, it's called the Nasher Museum in Durham, a brand new art museum. And the director was the mother of one of my classmates at my high school called Durham Academy. And she had moved from UChicago's museum called the Smart Museum to the Nasher. So I told her about my desire to go there, and she actually was able to call the dean of admissions at UChicago and give me an interview one-on-one with him. So I think I paid for this flight. I flew out to Chicago for like my official visit, stayed with a good friend of mine, a neighbor in Pilsen, and ended up like going to a Stones Throw Records showcase the night before my interview with like Madlib and Peanut Butter Wolf and Guilty Simpson, and drinking a lot, even though I was underage, and woke up like hungover for this interview and went in for the interview unprepared. This is my college admissions interview. Big chance because I got to do it with the dean of admissions, and I had that. So I instead of kind of talking to him about my grades or my sports or whatever, I just ended up talking to him about my film passion and my passion for hip hop and music, and where I'd been the night before. I'd met Madlib backstage, and all these kind of stories in this rapid way that I talked to people. And I ended up getting in off that interview, and totally insane thing that happened to me. But it is such a prestigious school, and I just knew, given that opportunity, you know, I wasn't gonna do film. I just they don't have a production program. They do now. They didn't at that time. They have something called Cinema and Media Studies, which is film analytics and film theory. But I just knew, I mean, given the cost of that university and given how much time and effort went into going there, I knew I wanted to do something big that I could, like, you know, make money in the future. I also identified early that making films wasn't a very profitable like way. Like my sister was a banker at that time, and
Mm.
I just knew I wasn't really going to be able to sustain myself making films. That again, there was no YouTube, there was no YouTube culture. Of course, there's no iPhone or Instagram or anything like that. And so the way to make a film at that point was write a script and hope it gets made. Documentary wasn't big or profitable. There's no Netflix, obviously. Da, da, da. So I was full in on trying to be a banker early on and trying to be a finance kid. The UChicago econ department is very competitive. It's very aggressive. I was talking to someone the other day. It's very conservative too. Alan Sanderson does the Econ 101. They got the Milton Friedman Institute. Sanderson was on Fox News every other week and then would come to the lectures. And, you know, very hard, but I had a lot of friends. You know, we made a lot of friends from a lot of international students from India, Brazil, Chile, like Andreas. We'll get into that later, I'm sure. But I was able to get through that econ program, you know, with, you know, a B plus average, got the degree by the time I was a junior. So everyone at that time is applying to Citigroup, JP Morgan, Goldman Sachs, that's all people are thinking about, trying to get to Goldman Sachs. And then I was like, you know what? I'm going to slap on this film degree, this cinema and media studies degree. Could have graduated a year early, but I was like, I don't want to go into the workforce. Jumped into that program with a legendary advisor, blocking his name. I'll have to look that up. Thesis advisor, blocking his name, but a lot of great professors there, all of whose names I'm blocking right now, but they guided me. There's 8 people in that program. And when I was doing the econ program, I was like, maybe there's an intersection between film and economics. You know, I had seen a few lectures and I was like, maybe there is a way to be profitable here. Maybe there's an intersection between technology, film, business, commerce, profitability. Maybe it's more than just the art. I was never thinking about it purely as a creative thing, but always kind of as a way I could like live and sustain myself, which my parents were obviously very heavy on. So just always kept my eye out for any company that was the intersection of business and film and business and digital media. And by the time I was a freshman and sophomore in college, MySpace came about, and I made that MySpace profile. That was kind of the beginning of digital media, as far as I'm concerned, being able to have that social network. I guess Facebook was around then, but it was only for college kids. It was more MySpace at that time, and being able to upload videos there and network with people. That's how I met Flying Lotus originally and all that stuff. And so, you know, the econ department at UChicago, I knew I had to do it. It was a struggle. People there were either pre-med, pre-law, or econ. So, you know, thousands of kids in that program. And it was just about trying to do something I knew I could live off there. And that background has helped me 100%. Like, I'm so glad I did it. That program is for anyone watching and wants to go to UChicago, enroll in the econ department, because it is par none the greatest, in my opinion.
That's awesome. Yeah, very similar experience for me studying economics at Columbia, like just all over the world, just gunning for, you know, that Wall Street gig. So
it's even better there. It's even better. Chicago is the fake Ivy, but we always wanted to be like a real Ivy League tier.
Well, no, I know some serious UChicago kids that can definitely do some damage with some problem sets and any kind of degree.
Right, and that was my whole life. There was problem sets every day, 7 days a week. That's all we were doing, and it really helped my work ethic. And there's a professor there called Professor Galenson, who actually, he was a Nobel laureate, and he writes on creativity. He traces the intersection of creativity and business throughout the last like 1,000 years of human existence, from like Picasso and all that stuff. And I took his class. I didn't do good in it, but I was like, whoa, this is totally what I'm into. Which, you know, I mean, I'm sure we'll get to it, but that's what led me to going all in on VBS TV.
Sure,
Vice.
Yeah. So take us from UChicago to Vice as an intern. Talk to me about the early days there. What did you learn during that period that really helped inform your style today?
Yeah, so freshman year of college, you know, I went home for the summer. I taught tennis all summer, and I waitered 2 different restaurants all summer. My sophomore year of college, I wanted to do an internship in film. So I looked around and I applied for an internship at the Chicago International Film Festival, which is a great international film festival in Chicago, and ended up being a programming assistant for the short form selection committee there. Great experience, met a lot of people, including Quentin Tarantino, Willem Dafoe, Uma Thurman, and just was able to program a selection of 18 shorts from a pool of 2,800 submissions internationally, and really saw what it takes to be a film festival level director and what the Hollywood scene was like, what the Chicago film scene was like, and all that. By junior year, that's when they're really competitive with their internships. That's when everyone's like, all right, now I got to get the best internship. Like I said, everyone's gunning for the 5 spots at Citi and Goldman and JP Morgan, what have you. And they have an internship program called the MedCalf program at UChicago, where other alumni in the arts will offer positions to UChicago alumni to fight over. And there was one at Paramount Pictures, there was one at the Weinstein Company, there was one at Sony Pictures. There was a lot of very high profile alumni from UChicago in the industry, and a lot of the film kids wanted that Paramount Pictures one. You would be assistant to one of the VPs of acquisitions there, a very famous development executive, and you would be on his desk for a year, and that was the big internship to get. I applied for it, and I was the second in running. I'll never forget this. And my buddy Joey Brown, who's a good friend of mine, ended up getting it. Shout out you, Joey. And that left me with nothing, no internship, no nothing. At the same time, I had read a New York Times article, this was probably in 2005, that featured a young man named Shane Smith and Sarush Alvi. And this article was about VBS TV partnering with CNN, and what do these gonzo magazine journalists have to do with the biggest news, one moment, yeah, the biggest news company in the world. What do these two have to do about? I read this article, and in the photo in the New York Times, it looked just like my room, because they're sitting in a brick wall stacked with mini DV tapes. This was before digital media, so everything was shot on mini DV, and the only way to store that was just stacking these tapes. And I saw that photo, I read that article, and it had mentioned Spike Jonze being involved as well, who was like an idol of mine. And I was like, yo, this company, I don't know if they do internships, but this is it. This is the future. This was still before YouTube, mind you. So there was the first time I had seen that phrase IPTV, which at the time, your IP address, and this was doing media through TV. And I was like, I could sense cable was becoming less popular, and this is where the future was going to be. It was going to be on the internet. And these guys having Spike and having CNN were the future. So by the first time I saw that article, I had done some work in Chicago with higher profile bands, building my reel, building it out, mainly music and documentary content. And they were a documentary company. So I made a pretty awesome reel. I had even met Spike Jonze at a screening of Where the Wild Things Are. And I used to do this when I would meet directors. I would like use my flip cam and like kind of photobomb them and be like, yo, we're Spike Jonze, da, 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 da. I did that with Harmony too. And I put that at the top of my reel. I put me and Spike Jonze in the reel, so they saw that like I had met him before and shit. And I sent him this reel, a young lady named Emily and Mike Daniels, who really changed my life, those two. But they didn't get back to me for weeks and weeks. And I just followed up. I would follow up every other week, because the college counselors at the university said that's what you got to do. You just got to follow up every other week until you get a yes. Followed up. It took me 6 months until I got a reply. And the reply was for, this is an unpaid internship, $0, and you got to pay for everything, and you got to fly yourself out for us to do a job interview. And I don't think I'd only been in New York City like 1 or 2 or 3 times before that. And I saved up and I bought the plane ticket out there, and I didn't have enough money to stay the night. So I bought a ticket to arrive in the morning and leave in the afternoon and just kind of chill in the city. And so I flew in, took the cab from JFK straight to VBS. I was geeking out, did the job interview, super nervous and like sweaty and tired off the plane. Killed the job interview because I was like, I got edit skills. That's pretty much all they cared about, if I could edit. They were looking for someone to, an intern who could actually like edit. And didn't hear back. And I started calling their office, emailing, and finally they offered me the internship. Vice did 4 interns every summer, and they would get over 1,000 applicants. And that was kind of the moment in my career. I mean, I was able to put that push through and get one of those very competitive internship spots, and moved myself out there. I can't even remember where I was staying. Oh, I was staying with a friend at the time from UChicago at her parents' house. and did that free internship, unpaid, completely broke, and the rest is history. I From the third week there, Eddie Moretti and Shane identified me that I had some talent, and they were throwing me on projects. Usually, the intern tasks at Vice, every morning they send you things you're supposed to tweet out. They were the first people to get me on Twitter. This was right when Twitter was launching. You tweet out the videos, you go comment nice comments. They didn't use YouTube yet. They were going to be the anti-YouTube. They had their own proprietary IPTV player on the site. It was all still VBS.TV back then. Comment, comment, comment. But then all of a sudden, Moretti and the VP of production there, Mike Daniels, said, try some edits. And I remember thinking, this is my one shot to impress. So I locked in, edited, ended up becoming a full-time editor right out the internship. And that was the year 2010, 10 years ago.
And talk to us about some favorite things you shot and edited there.
It was such a great ride. I mean, I'm so proud of that company and the team there. When I started, the valuation was probably about 200 million because they just took on a CNN investment and some other from the former CEO of Viacom, Tom Freston. We built that thing into a $5.8 billion company, international company, from a $200 million company. And that's a sort of run in digital media and in creativity in general you just never see, in my opinion. I'm like, screw TikTok, Vine, all that. This was like a real deal production company that was becoming a global Goliath. And that's just due to the talent there. That's undeniable. That overall was the best thing we ever did, was building it into a $6 billion company that probably could have even been bigger. And honestly, we were trying for an IPO for years, which was always my dream, to take that company public with them. Just would have been an amazing experience in that space. So as far as the greatest moments, I mean, there's so many good ones from the jump. Being able to work with Ryan Duffy, their lead correspondent, Thomas Morton, Action Bronson, Sarush, Shane. I was in from the ground floor there. So Shane would come to me and say, we're making a pilot for CBS, for NBC, for HBO, all of that. And we need you to work 24/7 around the clock until I'm satisfied with how this pilot's going to turn out. I worked with Jonah Kaplan, who was Spike Jonze's editor on it, and a few other editors. I'm blocking their name. And that's what turned into Vice on HBO. We made a really tight 60-minute pilot that was going to be like 60 minutes for young people. And when they came, we had been working so hard. Vice, in the early days, they work you to the bone. There's no excuses. You're getting paid $28,000 a year, trying to live in Brooklyn. And there's so many people who want that job. It felt like it was a banking job, but without the salary. So you're just grinding, trying to impress. Great learning experience in the notes review session too, because Shane and Jonah and Spike, Moretti, Sarush, all them, they'll be the first to say, just start over. This isn't what we want. You got to start over. You could be working 4 weeks on an edit and they'll look at it and be like, start from scratch. And that's the note. And having to navigate that and deal with that emotionally and deal with that creatively and find solution solving, it's better than any film school I could have done, for sure. And maybe the greatest moment was launching HBO season 1. I mean, that's the gold standard of television. They ended up giving Vice the largest financial and programming commitment they've ever given any company through the form of Vice News Tonight, which is a $300 million, 2,000-hour investment for them. And just, showing my work all over the world. I launched several joint ventures with Vice, including Fightland with the UFC, which was amazing, and Thump with Heineken, which covered electronic dance music, eventually Noisy, Motherboard, Munchies. My task at the ground floor there was to develop these sizzle reels that we could show internationally and try to integrate the vertical system. That was the whole thing. We were going to expand vertically and make a food channel, sports channel, what have you. And it wasn't enough for me to make one sizzle in English that blew the top investors in the world away. But I had to make it in 4 different languages and deal with the translators, and I didn't speak those languages. And my work always had to be at the level that Shane Smith would like it, which is a very high level. And I just remember that pressure and just never giving up. And but launching Viceland was a great time. We had been trying to launch that for 3 years. Hitting 10 million subscribers on YouTube was great, and 3 mil on Noisy was great. when I did the UFC joint venture, I was ringside at all the top UFC fights and met all the UFC players. Obviously through Noisy, I was able to interview Drake and Katy Perry, Ozzy Osbourne, as you said, which was a great moment. I pulled into Ozzy's house, almost hit Sharon, and just got to hang out with them all day. Got to interview Lemmy from Motorhead, Alice Cooper, a lot of legends. You know, one of the best memories me and Andreas have too is the Beats One radio show. Zane Lowe tapped Vice and Tim Cook to be a partner on this new venture that was called Beats One Radio. And the other partners were Dr. Dre, Drake, like some other people of that caliber, like Trent Reznor, and then like me and Andreas and like Vice. And we were like, damn. So we put on our grind hat and really figured that out. Ended up running for 230 episodes. And then, you know, Noisy was kind of my baby for a while, the Noisy TV show. And then they let me do Therapist, which was really great. I think from those years, the greatest experience was probably the Chief Keef Therapist, the Freddie Gibbs one. So many great experiences. And you know, you travel the world with Vice too, because we're a big international company. I was able to travel to Africa, Milan. Those are kind of the ones that stick out right now. India, and just film content and just learn. Yeah.
Amazing. Yeah. There's so many legendary brands that you're kind of reminding us of, from Motherboard to just so many things that they put out.
Yeah, Motherboard, I mean, just one more story there. I mean, I got to work closely with Erin Lee Carr, who's now one of the most prolific true crime documentary filmmakers out there. She did Michelle Carter documentary and Heart of Gold about the U.S. gymnastics team last year. And what we were working on together was the Occupy Wall Street things, you know, it's just to set the stage for you. We were out at Occupy filming with Tim Pool was the other guy. If you were now, Tim Pool's kind of gone the other way, but you know, all these people that are just legends, just unbelievable run for Vice. It was just really great. We just never had that IPO. That was going to be just ringing the bell was going to be my big moment.
Yeah. Yeah, I know Vice covered a lot of subcultures. You vaguely mentioned someone who's pretty big in the LA electronic subculture, Flying Lotus. Can you talk a little bit about that scene, how you got involved, maybe some people from that world that you came up with?
Yes, when I started my MySpace account, which was probably my junior year of high school to promote our band, fell into this subculture, which included Flying Lotus, Sam I Am, Daddy Kev, Gas Lamp Killer, and Low End Theory. And it was all on MySpace. You know, it was like, who'd you put in your top 8 on MySpace? I would put Sam I Am, Diabasi, Flying Lotus. And I just thought, you know, having been a Madlib fan, a fan of experimental hip hop and what Madlib was doing with the SP303, I was like, this guy is incredible. I'd never heard any music like Flying Lotus before. And he was a filmmaker as well and a visual artist. And he was on Adult Swim, which I liked. And I was like, I was all in, obsessed with him. I would buy every magazine cover he was on, which I still, you know, this is one from what, 2014. I have every magazine Flylo's ever been on, right, sitting right here. He is a hero of mine, and I remind him of that as often as I can. So eventually on MySpace, you were able to like DM your heroes. You were able to like talk to your heroes, and I would send him messages, and he would reply and say, well, that's sick, and thanks for being a fan. And just kind of kept that on for years and years. I was on his radar. I would send him my video work. Boom, sophomore year of college, I'm in Chicago, living with Tyler Benz in Chicago, and our neighbor was a young man named Jeremiah J. from the group Young Black Preachers, which I did a lot of work with, and he just blew my mind when I met him. He was a kid who produced rap, sang, could write hooks, could make hard-hitting rap, could make soulful rap, could make anything, and was an artist and a director. And I was all in, and I was like, I want to make all your music videos. I made a music video for Young Black Preachers called Clockers. I borrowed school equipment and made that in the middle of Hyde Park. To set the stage then too, in Hyde Park, when we would shoot Jeremiah J videos in front of the graffiti wall, my buddy Crusto would be writing graffiti with Vic Mensa and Chance the Rapper. And all those guys were just in Hyde Park, Southside Chicago, you know, 17, 16 years old, not becoming the Chance the Rapper you know today, but just to set the stage of how much talent was there. And Jeremiah J, I ended up making a video for him called Seasons with a $ as the S. And that was a beautiful video and song. I'll send it to you. You guys can look it up. Seasons, Jeremiah J. Probably 2009, I'd say. And sent that to Fly Low. And he was like, this is fucking sick. We're going to sign Jeremiah J to Brain Feeder. I fuck with you, Justin Staple. The link, I had impressed him with that one video. And I'll tell you why. It's because my friend had gotten one of the first, there's a guy, director called GL Joe in Chicago, who did all the Cool Kids music videos. Cool Kids Black Mags was his big breakthrough. And anyone making it out of Chicago, Cool Kids were like huge, so everyone looked up to them. GL Joe had gotten a DSLR and made music videos on the Mark II. Seeing the crispness of that DSLR Mark II quality blew my mind. I was like, oh shit, this is taking shit to the next level. Begged my friend, because I couldn't afford one. My friend's parents got her one for Christmas. And I remember, she'll tell you too, I borrowed it all the time from her. Took that DSLR and shot Jeremiah J Seasons in her apartment on a tripod. And it looked so crisp. No one was using those Mark IIs yet. And it looked so high budget, but obviously the budget was zero. Flylo was impressed. He signed Jay to Brain Feeder. He's like, you're Jay's video guy. I ended up doing 3-4 more videos with Jeremiah J. And, me and Flying Lotus had a dialogue there. We shared phone numbers. We would text. Every time he would come to Chicago, he would let us backstage at the shows. He would put us on the list. He would open for Tom York. He would play really big shows and take the time to hang out with us. I had my own music blog then he wouldn't let me interview him, but because he was very elusive back then, but I shot his live performance and made like a recap video of it that he really liked. Just shit like that. I was obsessed with the guy. And, that friendship has maintained to today. I work a lot with Warp Records and him and Brain Feeder. And that's how I introduced him to MySpace. And then through Jeremiah J, I somehow impressed him. And the last time I saw him, I'm sure I'm allowed to tell the story, the Pornhub Awards Brazzers after party.
Okay.
I know me and Steven Ellison in the corner. I won't go further into what happened that night, but it was a great night. And I love Flying Lotus to death. One of the greatest people ever to walk this earth.
Yeah. I want to jump a little bit into, I guess, your role and position as sort of a documentary filmmaker. Tim Kinsella is kind of this kind of iconic figure in indie and emo with Captain Jazz and then Joan of Arc, and ultimately became the subject of your first documentary. Can you tell me about why you chose Tim and Joan of Arc and the impact that had on you and just the concept of the film?
Yes, I can. And I happen to have right here the limited edition DVD that ended up being distributed and sold out in one day, but I was able to get my hands on a few. You can't find it anymore, but maybe I'll talk to them about doing a repressing, and you'll hear it first. I have a distribution plan set up so that more people can see that film. But in college, I always thought I wanted to be a cinematographer. I was obsessed with like Chivo and Timur, and I always thought I'd be the guy behind the camera. I wasn't ready to really like direct. I wanted to be the cinematographer. So my good friend Jack Lawrence Meyer, who ended up doing a single long on HBO and a lot of great films, he brought me on as a cinematographer on all his projects. And I shot a film with him called A Girl Named Clyde that we shot in Galveston, Texas, and a short film called Pushing 23, and a short series with him. And I really got the lay of the land working with him and learning what a director looked like. At the same time, like I said, we were obsessed with Tim Kinsella and Captain Jazz. So A Girl Named Clyde that I did with Jack Meyer is kind of my first feature because I shot it with him and I edited it all. Oh, wow, I just found this mask. And I really I realized what it took to make a feature film, which is like a lot. And I was editing it myself, and we shot a Doritos spec commercial for the Super Bowl, and I tripped over the hard drive cord, and we lost weeks of footage. And the film was never the same. We lost like a sex scene and like all this dope shit, and it was just like, we wanted to be like Duplass and Swanberg mumblecore, but I was like, all right. After I finished that movie, I knew I could make more features. And at Vice, I worked closely with Andy Capper, who directed Reincarnated with Snoop Dogg, where he turns into Snoop Lion, and he directed Suddenly with A$AP Rocky, which I shot a little bit of and helped to edit on. And those were feature-length films. One was at Toronto International Film Festival and Reincarnated, and suddenly was at South by. So I had the ropes of how to make a feature documentary, and I had shot a slew of short-form documentary content, along with programming that Chicago International Film Festival. So I was actually visiting my sister. Fast forward to, I think it's 2016. I'm in Chicago visiting my sister and her late husband. And we go to the Rainbow Room, a bar in Wicker Park, right around the corner from my sister's apartment. And I'm like drinking, we're doing shots, and I look in the corner and I'm like, yo, I think that's Tim Kinsella, straight up. And a guy at Vice News called Jason Mojica had told me he was always friends with Tim Kinsella. And I was like, you're friends with Tim Kinsella? That's a very elusive, obviously Tim's not on the internet. He is now, but he wasn't at the time. Very elusive figure, very famous. In Chicago, when I was at university, we would go to his concerts. And I remember, I hope Tim doesn't see this, but I remember at a make-believe show at Shuba's, me and Andreas screamed, Orchard Vale, what happened to Orchard Vale? Which was a movie he directed that never came out. And he was like, God, I got divorced over that movie, shut up. And that was my one interaction with him. And then Captain Jazz, a reunion show at Brooklyn Bowl, and we went and tried to have an interaction with Mike Kinsella, and he was chugging beer right out of the pitchers and wouldn't even talk to us. These were very scary, elusive emo figures. So I was like, okay, this is him. I had enough drinks in me where I worked up the courage to go talk to him. I said, hey, I work at Vice. I'm friends with Jason Mojica. And he was like, whoa, Jason, long blast from the past. Like, what's your name? Sat down, talked to him about 10, 15, 20 minutes. And he was telling me this year is celebrating the 20-year anniversary of Joan of Arc, his band that he was done with Captain Jazz. He was done with Make Believe, which is all kind of explained in the film. And he wanted to do Joan of Arc and 20-year anniversary. And I was like, I would love to make a documentary about the last 20 years of Joan of Arc. And I was super nervous, but I just asked it. And he was like, maybe, I don't know. I was like, I could get Vice to like get behind it. And he was like, ooh, because they didn't have a publicist really. And Vice was big press for a band like Joan of Arc. And I go home, tell all my friends, we take a photo together. I said it to all my friends. They were like, no fucking way. Like that you met that fool in that circumstance. I wake up the next morning, hungover, looking at my phone, and he emailed me. I gave him my business card. I gave him my Vice business card. He emailed my Vice address, long email. I'd love for you to do the film. I'd love for you to do this. I trust you. I'm ready to get my story out there. He's like, he's not really up to shit. So I was like, boom, I had to convince the publisher in Noisy that, because we at Noisy, the name of the game was always trying to get a lot of YouTube hits. The Post Malone ones got like 10 mil. We always wanted to break 1 million hits. We felt like that was good. I knew Joan of Arc wasn't going to break 1 million hits. And so you have to try to tell them you got to spend all this money to make this movie when it's going to flop. But we had the Beats One show going on at the time, which was bringing in a lot of money every week because Apple would pay for that content. So I kind of was able to be like, yo, let's like, since I'm doing this, let's do my film. And they're like, yeah, let's do it. So why I chose him to be my first, I was like, I had been waiting to make this movie my entire life. This was the reason I wanted to be a filmmaker, was to make a Captain Jazz movie. I didn't know if it was going to be a biopic on Tim Kinsella, which I still want to do, or a documentary on Tim Kinsella, but I had the idea to do this movie since I was 15 years old, straight up. And I was like, I was obsessed with Tim Kinsella, his music, his lyrics, his poetry, his style, his legacy, his tattoos, his books. He's an author. And I had wanted to make this film. So I was like, I'm all in on this movie. And it's what a burden to bear too, to try to make a profile movie about your idol. I was nervous the whole time if I would do it justice, and just kind of had to have I was like, I knew right away I was going to spend it took me hundreds of hours to make that movie, and every moment felt like a pleasure. The big breakthrough, I had hired an editor to edit it for me because I was busy with my day job. He spent weeks and weeks and tons of money editing this movie. And I watched the cut with my buddies, and we were like, it's just not there yet. We had been working on Author, the J.T. Leroy story at the same time, which is a great film. Everyone check that out on Amazon Prime. And I went to the world premiere of Author and did some Q&As with J.T. Leroy, Laura Albert, and I was like, damn, this movie took it to the next level. I want to make it like that. So ended up doing a bunch of mushrooms, rewatching my movie and listening to a bunch of Joan of Arc, and I edited the movie on mushrooms over like a 4-day period and like a slew of re-editing it. And Tim has never seen the movie. He won't watch it, but Pitchfork liked it. Mike Kinsella liked it. His mom liked it. His ex-wife liked it. All my friends liked it. I still send it around and people like it. I really wanted to make a movie that wasn't just for Tim fans, but like anyone could relate to. So it's really like a story about someone who's just like a weirdo, kind of like The Devil and Daniel Johnston. I always really liked, and you know, someone who's doing this band for 20 years, not for commercial success, not to be a popular band, someone who has proved he can be in a popular band with Cap and Jazz and American football, but doesn't seek that. He just does it because it makes him happy. It's what he wants to do. And I was very attracted to that. I was like, in this world of capitalistic pressure and all these things, just doing shit that makes you happy is really the truth. And filmed that movie over 4 months with him. He was super nervous about it. I did a series. I probably did 6 hours of interviews with him, 10 more hours of other interviews, including Devandra Banhart, which was great. Mike Kinsella. Financed most of the movie myself. Financed a lot of it with Vice's money. And, you know, he revealed a lot of insane things he's never revealed anymore. Like he was sexually abused as a kid at Catholic school. And, you know, that informed a lot of his lyrics. You know, past insane drama he had with the band, and Victor Villarreal, who I took a car up to North Illinois to his basement. And this is one of the most legendary guitarists from Cap and Jazz, and he's living in squalor essentially. And it was just an amazing experience. And I remember the deadline approach where the album came out, and his publicist and label and him were like, yo, where's the movie? Like, you've been working on this thing for a year. We need the movie. Because I never wanted to let it go. I wanted to just keep working on it. I felt an immense responsibility to make it impactful. So the deadline really was, the album came out. This was the asset they wanted for the album. Dropped it. Had a premiere party after a Cap and Jazz reunion show. We had the premiere party at Tenants of the Trees. Tim came. We all drank. We high-fived. The movie came out. One of the best experiences of my life. And then Joyful Noise Records said, let's put it out on DVD with an unreleased Tim Kinsella song pressed on the outside of the DVD. So if you put this DVD on your vinyl record player, which it comes with a little thing to do that, and you put your record needle on this fucking DVD, it'll play 2 unreleased Tim Kinsella songs exclusive to this DVD. So I was like, whoa, bro, this is living my dream straight up. Like, one of the best experiences ever. But to answer in brief, like, he's my idol, and I knew I wanted to make that film since I was 13.
An incredible story, man, just for that to happen.
And that's it's the reason I said it long-winded is that when you're doing a feature film, that's really what it takes. You need every day. There's so many issues and money issues, and we cleared 90 songs. We cleared 45 to 50 songs for it, and we didn't have a budget. And there's so much shit that goes wrong that you have to know. You know, you have to know that you're gonna wake up every day and do that shit.
Awesome.
Yeah.
I want to jump into the past few years here, specifically, you know, your new production company, All the Smoke. Talk to me about how that started. Why does someone start a production company? And yeah, you started with a close friend of yours, Tyler Benz. Talk about that relationship as well.
All the Smoke, shout out. I was really into branding. Like, I always felt, and even people who are still at Vice asking me what they should do next, I'm like, it's never a better time to start your own brand, right? And just be your own boss and start your own company. I really believe that. And when we were at UChicago, I lived with Tyler. We actually pledged the same fraternity our freshman year. We met, me and Tyler and Andreas all met in the first few weeks of college, and we bonded over our love of Cap and Jazz. Me and Andreas, he had seen my shared iTunes playlist in the library, and he saw that I was listening to Cap and Jazz and American football, and like used the school network to like email or IM me. And he was like, oh shit, we like the same music, let's chill. And like, you know, from there it's an amazing 15-year friendship and counting. And Tyler also, we met our second week of college. He was super hip from Bainbridge Island in Seattle. We were drinking Four Locos, talking about TV on the radio and Animal Collective and shit, you know, the early 2000s wave. And you know, I was an artsy kid. I was in bands in Carborough, and there weren't a lot of artsy kids at UChicago because everyone's so academic there. Me and Tyler pledged the frat, Delta Upsilon together, got in. We were like pledge brothers, whatever, grew a friendship there. And but he had a very serious girlfriend, so he was kind of always doing that. And me and Andreas were more like doing insane shit constantly. And me and Andreas started a company called Ounce, which we had talked about. It's still around. And I wanted it to be like Vice. I liked how Vice, you could put Vice music, Vice films, and just a word that fit in front of everything. So we brainstormed at his parents' house in Larchmont in the backyard. I'll never forget, with his father around too. What's a word we could that we want to do in digital media? And we landed on Ounce, registered the name, registered all that shit, and really learned the ropes. And it snowballed so fast. We ended up doing Boiler Room New York, all their videos, tons of music videos under Ounce. There's a record label component, which is still on Bandcamp, ounce.bandcamp.com, and soundcloud.com/ounce records. And like I was showing you the thing just as an example, like if you go back to the Ounce Instagram, the last thing we did was Lakeith Stanfield's music video. And like we had done shit with Travis Scott and Jeremiah J. And we had a contract with MoMA PS1 to do a bunch of their shit where we filmed Tom York. And I just saw how much that snowballed. And I love having my own brand to do stuff like that with. Ounce is still around. We're still working on it. We're coming up with ideas. And but at Vice, we were like, yo, it's time for another brand. Like Ounce stood for something, and I wanted to keep that singular. I wanted it to be like more like witchy and like Salem and like elusive and shit. And we wanted to do a brand that was gonna be more mainstream and like down. At Ounce, we were very selective who we would work with. We were like, we're not gonna work with you, we're gonna work with you. Da, da, da. All the Smoke, I was like, we're gonna work with whoever. And so me and Tyler, you know, the reason it was me and him is that I had gotten Andreas and Tyler hired at Vice. I don't think that's a secret. I mean, they got themselves hired, but I made the necessary intros. But we were all just sitting together 5-7 days a week for like 4 or 5 years straight, just us three hanging out. And so it was out of necessity. Like me and Tyler were like, we need another brand that's going to be mainstream. We're going to work with everyone. We're not going to be pretentious. We needed a name, and I think Tyler came up with the name. There, you know, Smoke Perp and Kanye, they got the lyrics. I want all the smoke, and Kanye says, I want all the smoke on it. And we wanted something hip hop. It was during the SoundCloud rap revolution, and we wanted something aggressive and shit like that. And we were sitting there, and we were kind of. I've never been a big fuck Vice guy. I mean, so many people bandwagon on hating Vice, but I honestly fucking love Vice. It's no secret. And we were just like, we just needed something else to do. You know, Vice encouraged people to start their own thing because it just didn't pay very well. So they wanted you to have your own thing that you could build and feel proud about and just be happy. And you know, the first thing we did with All the Smoke was like, we're going to do music videos under this director name. We wanted to do merch. We're still trying to do merch. That's what the whole X thing is all about. Like, I love Virgil and Kanye and what they've done with the merch game, and Hood by Air, Shane Oliver, and we're just dying to do merch. And we flopped on the merch so hard time and time again that we were just like, let's direct. But it was out of necessity. Me and Tyler sit together every day for years in Vice. We were busy with our Vice work, but it wasn't completely fulfilling. We wanted to build our own brand. And when artists would come in for Beats One interviews, we would give them all the Smoke gear and take pictures with it and be like, we can do your video. And also Vice was saying no to a lot of our ideas. We would bring them like fucking awesome ideas constantly, and they'd be like, oh, we don't really get it. It's not the right time. Da, 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 da. We were kind of ahead of our time. So we did it under our own banner, and the rest is history. We're fucking killing it now. So
yeah, man. I mean, I'm just gonna jump right into it. You had a hit people can only dream about with, you know, The Therapist, a docu-series where cultural figures from all over the world sit down and sometimes get as vulnerable as they've ever been on camera. Talk to me about, you know, how that came to life, how you met the therapist, the concept, all the way to, you know, kind of shooting the first season.
Yep. It's a great story. One of the proudest projects I've ever worked on in my life. And I sent you that email because I still can't believe it that it got me on the TV Academy. I was on it by 27. I was so proud about that. You got to count your wins out here because there's so many losses, just like that FaceTime call. But I like to count the wins and focus on the wins, like Gary. But YG, a very prolific rapper named YG, we would find content moves to do out of new albums releases because the labels would make their artists available because they had something to promote. YG got shot in the studio, if you remember, I think in 2016, and no one spoke to the cops, no witnesses. He didn't really know who shot him, and he disappeared for 6 months after that. He was really shooken up. He almost lost his life. He got shot 3 times. There was at the studio, didn't know who did it, was really upset about it, understandably, and thought he had been set up, understandably, and kind of was, honestly. He thought DJ Mustard had set him up, which he publicized, and all of that, the label was going to try to manufacture into this album called Still Brazy. If anyone remembers that amazing album, Still Brazy. And it was about the PTSD that YG had felt from that event, which is very symbolic of the PTSD a lot of people all around the country feel from those events around gun violence, whether it's a school shooting or an inner city shooting or even hearing a gunshot or a firework. There's PTSD constantly. And YG seriously suffered from that. And how to confront that, being a black male and a rapper and trying to be this super macho figure, but also having this vulnerability of PTSD and not being able to trust his own crew because he thought he got set up. The label, I think it was Def Jam, set up a meeting with him, me, and his creative director and some of his publicists. And I was super nervous because YG is very intimidating, but I know his publicists well. And we went out, and his creative director, I'm blocking his name, but he pitched me on this idea of YG sitting down with a psychologist, a psychoanalyst guy, and there would be a timer clicking, and we would get inside the mind of all this emotion that YG felt. And YG ran me through all the PTSD he felt and how he thought DJ Mustard had set him up. One funny thing in that meeting, I hear a knock on the door, and you're like, if you've ever been to the studio with YG, it's intense. But in comes DJ Mustard when we're talking about DJ Mustard setting him up. I'm like, oh shit, DJ Mustard's standing right here. Don't these two have beef? And lo and behold, they just dap each other up. It was tense, but Mustard was like, yo, and YG was like, yo, and kept it moving. And then door closes, and YG's like, fuck that guy. Like, fuck, he set me up. I was like, this is some crazy shit. So YG was super nervous about it, but through his creative director, we give the creative director a ton of credit for coming up with the concept of sitting a rapper down with therapists. He's credited on the show. And, you know, I give him full credit for coming up with this idea. And so YG and his creative director wanted to find someone that was like Denzel Washington, like the voice of God. They always liked how Denzel would come on in the VO and like have this deep voice. And Morgan Freeman was another example. Just these like very fatherly, godlike figures. And we put together a big spreadsheet of people we thought fit that profile. And one of them was Siri Sitnam Singh, who is lives in San Fernando Valley, is a Jungian analyst, a former ballet dancer and stylist, and former Michael Jackson. He was in his troupe and just had his long storied career that led to family therapy and a focus on inner city youth and Jungian practice. And we went down, me and Andy Capper, for a meeting with Siri. And what sold Capper was he went in his closet and he saw how this man dressed with these robes, and he had been all over the world in India. He was like, you're the fucking guy. You're the guy. YG didn't really get it at first. We had to sell him on it, but I think they had a pre-call, and Siri's so calming. We knew he was the guy. He came in a suit. He didn't know anything about rap or music, which was actually kind of good because we didn't really want him to be like influenced by how famous these people were. Sat down for the YG one. You know, he brought his 400 clothing out. We styled him, Still Brazy album promotion. And we ended up shooting for 8 hours of therapy with YG and him. And he's drinking a whole bottle of Hennessy during it. So he was super drunk, smoking blunts between each break, which is, by the way, you shouldn't do therapy. First of all, you shouldn't do televised therapy. Second of all, you shouldn't be drinking or smoking weed while you're doing a therapy session. But we were doing it for TV, so it was fine. But 8 hours. Then we took it to the edit. We cut a 1 hour version, and it was, you know, we launched that, and it was trending. They talked about it on Rosenberg, Hot 97. They talked about it on BT. It was trending on Twitter when it aired. I remember being in my home in Silver Lake, like seeing the comments. I was like, yo, this is it. People need to address mental health issues in that community so badly. I knew it all along, and I wanted it to be a thing. You know, Charlemagne does it now. There was nothing back then. The rap scene was all about being macho, hiding your feelings, never having feelings, being tough, putting the gun in the lens, and keep it moving. And if you're sad, pour up a little lean or take a perk, and then it'll go away. That was the whole MO as far as like Sosa and, you know, a lot of these other guys. And I was like, nah, there's vulnerability here. YG opened up extremely well. People started to understand PTSD is a real thing in those communities. The episode was great. YG was very happy. Album came out, boom. A few months later, Vice is like looking for shows for Viceland, the TV network, and they were like, let's do 10 episodes. They ordered 10 episodes. I was thrilled. YG confronted me at a party later on being like, You should have asked me for permission to do that. His
Yeah.
creative director was pretty pissed, said I stole the idea, which happens all the time. We came to terms with him. I was like, whatever. And we ended up doing 10 episodes. It was a huge hit. Like I told you before, the ratings were comparable to Jesus and Mira when they were on Viceland. It was the top rated, beating Bong Appetit a few times. Abdullah's a good friend of mine, so we would always compete on we had Wednesday ratings, Wednesday prime time. Having a primetime cable TV show is another ballgame for me, because you're getting talked about on Hot 97 Breakfast Club the next morning. You're getting talked about in New York Times. We had a big spread by John Caramanica, New Yorker, all this press. It was great. Spike Jonze emailed the team, said he was super proud of us. That was a great email. Shane Smith loved the ratings. 10 episodes, boom. It was on me to choose who we wanted to do. Vic Mensa, got to go back to the core. Vic Mensa, Young M.A., Freddie Gibbs was the kickoff episode, because Freddie had told me about this false incarceration shit, and I'm very intrigued by false incarceration, and knew he could be the first, and the PTSD felt from that. 10 episodes, boom. They ordered 10 more, and then we were stretching it. We were like, shit. It was hard to find 10 more people, and we were going to do a second season with like X and 6ix9ine and shit, but a lot of shit fell apart. But that's how it kicked off. All love to YG and his incredible creative team. Check out that Swag music video just dropped. He keeps moving shit forward. YG is a maverick, and I love him.
It's amazing.
That's how it happened.
Yeah, Justin, I want to switch gears to your second feature-length documentary, American Rapstar. Just really tracing through most of the SoundCloud scene. I'd love to hear more about the process of making that film, and then friggin' getting accepted in the South by Southwest.
Yeah, that was fantastic. I knew after the Tim Kinsella film, I knew I was going to keep making feature documentaries. I got a few more I'm working on right now. But we're obsessed with SoundCloud rap. I mean, all credit to Tyler Benz to kind of putting me onto the shit, because he had worked at V-Files for years, which was like way more hip than Vice, honestly, because they were in Soho, right when like Ian Connor and A$AP Rocky and Hood by Air and Virgil were all popping. And so V-Files were like the epicenter of that really fucking cool scene. And so Tyler was really ahead of the game with like identifying that like people like Lil Pump and Smoke Perp and X would have like a lifespan. He was like, yo, this is fucking hard music. And I just loved the music of like X, Pump, Perp. We would have them in and do Beats One. A lot of those kids' first interviews. And then a docu-series came along called Defiant Ones, which the 4-part series, everyone should definitely go watch that immediately. And I was like, yo, this show is so sick. I want to make Defiant Ones for SoundCloud rap. I was like, I want to make Defiant Ones for anything, just because the style in which it was made was like incredible. And we do music documentary, and this took it to a whole nother level. And I was like, I want to do Defiant. You could do it for emo, you could do Defiant Ones for whatever. But we were like, all right, Defiant Ones for SoundCloud rap, because we're also kind of funny. So we were like, there's some irony in everything we do, and there's some comedy in everything we do. And we thought that would be really funny to be like highbrow, lowbrow like that, and like take SoundCloud rap really seriously, because with the emergence of Spotify and Apple Music and the DSPs and the streaming economy, those kids were being taken serious. You got a $4 million Post Malone signing the Republic. You got Rocky signing for 2.8 million. This was big money around how much these kids were streaming, and we wanted to understand why and why kids were connected to them and how they were making millions of dollars for the label executives. And we started collecting footage. We started shooting every opportunity we could with the idea that we were going to make a mini series for Vice or for whoever. What happened at Vice though is that a little thing started happening called like cancel culture, I guess it's called now, and like the whole idea of like separating the art from the artist as a journalist was not being allowed anymore. So figures like XXXTentacion and Tekashi 6ix9ine and even Pump, Perp, Kevin Gates, a lot of figures, Rich the Kid, if they were not being upstanding citizens in real life, we were not really allowed to promote their work. And so, and I agree with that. I go back and forth. Should you deplatform? I find the whole argument I'm fascinated with. Like when they deplatformed X from Spotify, and then Kendrick Lamar came to his rescue. Like all that was happening when we were developing this, and I was almost more intrigued with the moral dilemmas at play there than I was with the people themselves. Like, why are all these like white bloggers piling on these kids from the inner city just trying to like make a record? And like, why are we like being the judge and jury and try to cancel rappers and shit. I was like, this is truly a crazy time. And you can see now it's really snowballed into like what we know as modern cancel culture, whatever. So, you know, Vice was not the right fit for that project because we're not being critical on X in the movie. I'm, as a journalist, it's not my job, in my opinion, and it's just one journalist here, but it's not my job to make a moral assumption on a rap artist who's far more successful than myself. I'm not going to go in and analyze his criminal convictions and, you know, every day with these people. I mean, I've shot Gucci, I've shot Migos, Sosa, Fredo, Cardi. Every day you can look at a day in the life of a rapper and try to find some moral ambiguity there. It's just the nature of how people live. It's the same with pro athletes. It's the same with actors. It's the same with record executives. It's the same with movie executives, Harvey Weinstein. It's the same with politicians. I'm not going to pass judgment on any of these kids. Boom. So that's the reason why we didn't really develop it with Vice. And then, but I wasn't going to stop. I mean, I love the project. So we were collecting footage, thinking about it. And then me and Tyler, we would have these late night edit sessions and we made a sizzle for it. And I wanted to put the name American in it because I thought that would be really funny to like, what is it like to be an American rapper these days? And it's a little funny too, because the old trajectory of like Tupac, Eazy-E was way different than what it's like being an American rapper now. So it's kind of like an explainer for what it's like to be an American rapper now. Made this hard ass sizzle. We used What's Up Bro, used all this shit. I used all this footage I had at 6ix9ine and all this X shit. Kids moshing at hip hop shows was still just happening. I mean, 2016, 2017, golden year for SoundCloud rap, Uzi Vert, Cardi, all the moshing. Travis. Made the sizzle, boom, emailed the sizzle to everyone I knew. My buddy Nick Weidenfeld, shout out you, legend, all these people. Everyone loved the sizzle because they're like, damn, this is like a new scene. I got a lot of attention, got the attention of William Morris Endeavor, got the attention of numerous production companies. Never really fit at Vice, but the sizzle led me to a bidding war on the fucking movie, honestly. People were like, let's not make this a mini series. Let's make this a feature-length documentary just because there might not be enough content. I got to send you the movie still, but it might not be enough to make 4 hours. Let's just make an hour and a half. And then if there's more, and I'll let you know here first, I'm making a sequel. I announced it on Twitter. 3 people liked it. I'm making the fucking sequel. American Rapstar 2, The Rappening, coming. I promise you that. So boom, bidding war, ended up signing with Pretty Bird, Ventureland, John Bassett, Kirsten Emhoff, amazing veterans in the documentary space. Signed up with my boy Braxton Pope, who did The Canyons and City of Gold with Jonathan Gold, and he just did The Card Counter with Paul Schrader that's coming out, and I was with him last night, and just a maverick, and I couldn't believe that all these people were fucking with me because we had like clout, but we didn't have like IMDb credits, you know? And I have so much respect for anyone who's going to put a young filmmaker under their wing and tell them that their work means something and that it could find an audience. And I worked my ass off on that movie and really wanted to tell the stories of Little Xan and Bad Baby and XXX and fucking, we didn't put 6ix9ine in it because I'm working on a different 6ix9ine thing, but Matt Ox. I told the people in the pitches, I truly believe each of these characters could have their own feature-length documentary. You could get the Matt Ox documentary, you could get the Bad Baby, the Little Xan, the X one is still kind of coming, and you see the Travis one was amazing. Shout out White Trash Tyler. But worked on it, boom, and then we needed deadlines because filmmakers will work forever. So we used the Sundance deadline as a deadline where I was going to wrap it up and deliver a 90-minute cut that I was proud of. Hit the Sundance deadline. We played the inside baseball, tried to get into Sundance. The programmers wrote me a very long and great email just explaining that the film is amazing, but it wasn't for them. You'll see the same thing happen to Mikey Alfred with North Hollywood. Amazing film. Mikey Alfred is a maverick. He did mid-90s with Jonah Hill and Illegal Civilization. Denied from Sundance. It's always a heartbreak for people who put money into a movie. But then we got into South by because it fits way better there. We had just been there the year before. The Little Peeps, Everybody's Everything, out now on Netflix now. Go watch that. You'll see my name in the credits. But got into South by. Then we had our platform. I love South by, but like I am more like, let's fucking just go straight to Netflix because having done so many videos on YouTube, I'm like, the internet's the biggest film festival in the world, but you want an audience. But South by is just like a really special time, and it's great, and we were super excited about it. I also got it into CPH Docs, which is a festival in Copenhagen, which Harmony used to show his films at, Trash Humpers and shit. So I was like, I want to do what Harmony does. Harmony also watched the film and gave notes on it, gave a whole page of notes that I took and I printed and I keep it around because Harmony watching my movie was sick. He wanted to get involved at one point. But, and we still may do something with him because the sequel. But, South by, boom. Then me and Tyler locked in. We were like, bro, we're going to go down there. We're going to throw an after party. We're going to do American Rapstar merch. Perp was going to come. Diego Little Zan was going to come. We were going to rock that Austin Film Festival. We were going to do press, go crazy. Sound mixed it with an Oscar-winning sound mixer who did Whiplash, named Ben, for Dolby 8 surround sound. Mixed it in 2K color for the theatrical experience. Grinded on this computer for hundreds of hours. Me and Tyler finessing it, replacing songs that we couldn't clear. I made original beats for it. Boom. 9 days before that motherfucking world premiere of our film, COVID hits and they cancel something, not South by, but something else gets canceled. And at that time, it was like the worst thing could have happened is they could cancel Coachella. They'll never come after Coachella, right? And we were like, at that point, I knew South by was going to be canceled. I knew 4 days before they announced it. I'm like, if the citizens of Austin don't want you to come there, it's going to go down. So I was pretty fucking upset. I'm not going to lie. We grinded so hard on that shit. We were going to go to Austin anyway and party. And they canceled it. They canceled Copenhagen. They canceled the entire world. They canceled every film festival. They canceled Coachella. And the movie is fire. And I promise the viewers it's coming to you in the biggest way we can. But it was just our love for SoundCloud rap. We had to make that movie.
Yeah, I'm so excited to see American Rapstar. I mean, I can't even find a trailer anywhere on the web, so I'm definitely need to see a little bit. But I mean,
one thing about the trailer on the web, real quick. Sorry, I know I'm long-winded, but like all of these people need to understand. And Thrasher just did an interview with Mikey Alfred that I thought was really interesting about the skate community. People gotta understand, the kids in this movie are motherfucking celebrities. They are huge motherfucking celebrities. You may want to talk shit on Bad Baby, Bergoli, Maddox, Little Zan, X, but you try to go out in public with these kids, they're gonna get swamped. I've been on Melrose Fairfax, so they're gonna get swamped. These are the new rock and roll stars. And the fact that this movie isn't out there already, you see the little Peep one blew up and Peeps and ours too. Like, these are the new rock stars, man. You got to respect them as such. But the gateholders of Hollywood, as everyone knows, are older, white, don't give a fuck about rap. Don't listen to me. Don't listen to anyone. So it's sitting on a shelf right now. But those are the fucking rap stars, man. They're the American rap stars. They're bigger than Johnny Depp. Fuck all that.
No, I know for sure. And just for the audience out there, I mean, you know, you're talking names like, you know, Maddox, Bad Baby, Denzel Curry, Kehlani, Post Malone, like, so many different rappers. Like how do you classify SoundCloud rap? And, you know, were there particular producers or types of sounds that, you know, you can sort of help us define that genre, that term?
Yep. And it's in the first act of the movie too. It's the way I like to sum it up is young people face all these issues, right? Whether it's prescription drug abuse, whether it's a lack of employment opportunities, which is a really real thing, whether it's anxiety, whether it's social media addiction, whether it's technology addiction, whether it's gun violence in schools, whether it's all that stuff, whether it's having to wake up every day with Donald Trump as your president, which weighs on the young mind. All of these things were like a combustible thing that were brewing in the minds of young people. You had it with the punk movement. You had it with the original hip hop movement. And this was another reckoning in a post-Obama era where we were going to have our own punk movement in 2016, 2017. Trump became president. The streaming systems kicked off. Spotify had their IPO. Apple Music launched. Tidal, we kind of forgot about, but it launched. And SoundCloud launched. And now Fruity Loops launched. And now Ableton launched. And now all you need to get your song heard by millions of people for the first time ever is a shitty-ass mic in your room and Fruity Loops and an internet connection. And with that, you don't need no record deal. You don't need no A&R. You don't need no any of that. You just release your own music. So you get those advances in technology and the streaming platforms mixed with that combustible angst that was brewing in the minds of young people. And boom, that's your SoundCloud rap. And what does that sound like sonically? It's serrated bass. John Caramanica in the film talks about Ronnie J, the hard-hitting, crunchy bass. We're not going to EQ our bass. We're not going to compress our bass. Your bass is going to clip. We're also going to be yelling. We're going to be yelling about the drugs we're doing. We're going to be crying about the drugs we're doing. We're going to be yelling about heartbreak. We're going to be yelling about promiscuity with other women. We're going to be yelling about how we hate ourselves and we hate everyone. We're going to be yelling about how we're going to kill you. And we're also going to be moshing at the show. And, you know, Uzi Vert, I give credit to Travis and Cardi and Uzi Vert. They kind of kicked off and can't forget Sesh Hollow Water, Sesh Boys or whatever, and fucking Suicide Boys. Their shows are insane. We're going to mosh at the shows. We're going to be screaming. We're going to be clipping. We're going to be rapping about the most nihilistic, disgusting shit we possibly can, because that's what the emotions we were feeling are. That's all that anger brewing. It just came out in that, and it's turned more into melodic and like just, you know, sad shit now. But like at that time, an X song, a pump song, a perp song was just like D-Rose, 100 on my wrist, when, you know, Pump was just screaming and sounding terrible. And I was in Cabo with the crew. We were in the club and they played D-Rose, and that's when I knew that this is something more than a local scene in Florida. And if you go to Broward, Florida, it's a tough situation down there, man. It's a red state with open carry law and just tons of drugs and insanity, and it's just all that combustible angst combined with the technology advance. That's how I define SoundCloud rap. You mentioned Post Malone. He did White Iverson. I didn't get to interview Rex Kudo in Noisy Rap's Post Malone. Everyone go check that out. 10 million views and counting. But he's the first SoundCloud rapper, in my opinion. Now, people get mad at me because they want to say Denzel Curry and Raider Clan were the first. And Harmony Korine actually wrote that in his notes. They were the first. Fine. Space Ghost Perp, fine. But Post Malone was the first, at least, to use SoundCloud as his platform to launch a multi-platinum diamond record and get a fucking $3 million record deal. And from SoundCloud to success is what I named that Noisy Raps. And the founder, CEO of SoundCloud, tweeted it out and said he loved it. And it's just about using the platform to find success. And sonically, I mean, that's a stronger argument for me than sonically. Mask Gorilla and everyone will say it's definitely Space Ghost Perp and Raider Clan. I don't know, because sonically, I think I'm more in the Pump Perp Post Malone camp, but people will hate on me for that. It's just me.
And then
Space Ghost, they're all in the movie though. Raider Clan and Space Ghost are in the movie. Sorry, go ahead.
Sure, yeah, totally part of the legacy. Justin, what do you think is like the legacy of SoundCloud rap 10, 20 years from now? How's it going to be remembered?
Yeah, I mean, look, people ask me that a lot, and it is mainstream music now. If you're looking at Alamo Records, who we work with a lot, Todd Moskowitz, who's mentioned in the movie, does not like the movie, and he identified that these kids were more than. This is a man who founded 300 Records with Lyra Cohen and signed Migos, and now his next thing was identifying a young man named Wi-Fi at his funeral and a young man named Smoke Perp, and these are big rap stars. Signed them, created Alamo Records, highly profitable record label. You get Elliot Grange, the son of Republic CEO Lucian Grange, Universal. The legacy is that it's now become mainstream music, whether you're Juice WRLD, Kid Laroi, Polo G, Lil TJ, everyone. I mean, kids send me music every day. Shout out YDN, who we're working with, and YBN Namir, and it is mainstream music. So the haters wanted it to go away, and we were going to go back to Russ and J. Cole and Kendrick and but no, like, America is in a fucked up place right now, and kids are really anxious and upset and angry, and rightfully so, about a number of things. And this is angry music, and this is sad music. I mean, that Juice WRLD album was like a devastating album to listen to, and it's sad music, it's angry, and it's aggressive music, and that's what is mainstream culture now. It's showy, it's selfie culture, it's narcissistic, it's angry, it's misogynist sometimes, it's promiscuous, and mainstream rappers want to be more like SoundCloud rappers now. I mean, Eminem working with Cole Bennett for Godzilla, and the rise of Juice WRLD, and I mean, Russ is like the only one kind of making it and shitting on them, but like J. Cole did that sit down with Lil Pump, and they came to Kanye worked with Lil Pump, and I love it. You such a fucking Smoke Perp wrote that fucking song for him, and that's a #1 record. Kanye and 6ix9ine. I mean, the legacy of 6ix9ine explains what's happened to SoundCloud rap too. To be able to go to jail, snitch on everyone, come out, become a superstar, have #1 records, and be in the mainstream with Nicki and Kanye. And so you got your Drakes and you got those kids. So I think the legacy 10 years from now is we're just going farther and farther in that direction. I mean, I was on the phone with the A&R earlier today. They said it was over. We're all signing melody rappers now. But nah, that hard hitting shit's here to stay, man. And you want an example? It's called Wash Me in the Blood. You turn that new Kanye single on, the first thing you hear is, Ronnie J, please turn me up. Now, who's going to think Ronnie J is going to come from Broward and help Kanye make these hit records and take it to that level and have his tag in there? Pierre Bourne as well with Cardi. You're going to hear Pierre on everything now. So I think it's just going to move farther and farther in the mainstream. One man's opinion, though.
Just wanted to know your ideas on sort of the concept of cultural capital, the idea that these guys are kind of like
Right.
value, it's just sort of exploding larger than everyone else. How's that happening? And, how's that kind of evolved in the history of SoundCloud rap?
Great question. Some of my favorite series of interviews is you'll see on my website in my bio, there's a photo of Zane Lowe, like pointing at the phone and talking to me. I love fucking Zane Lowe. And you know why I love him? He did an interview with Kanye West. He does all these Kanye interviews that are classics, as everyone knows. One thing Kanye talks about in that interview is how he would control his cultural capital. And he tells that story about meeting with Ari Emanuel and Ari Emanuel showing him, this is how it's going to be done. And he has that famous quote. He said, he pulled out Lady Gaga's on our roster and we made her the creative director of Polaroid. I like some of the Gaga songs. What the fuck does Gaga know about Polaroid? And I love that anecdote because that's really how it be out here. They're like trying to pair, Juice WRLD with a tropical juice, or fucking trying to make these weird corporate connections that make no sense. The cultural capital, and this is what Russ is speaking on too, is from their influence themselves. They need to sell their own merch themselves. I mean, it's just funny that Cole Bennett's done it all, but they need to just own their capital. That means not trusting the label, not trusting the booking agent, not trusting the publicist, not trusting the Polaroid collaboration, but digging in on what makes their brand singular and unique. Ian Connor's done that really well with Sicko. And that's their cultural capital. So whether that manifests in a single, that's probably the most tangible thing you can do with Kid Laroi, Juice WRLD. You're going to see real profits from really honing in on what makes their music good and leaning into that, or whether it's product. Now, I'm trying to think of a good example on the product side. You just got to talk about Travis Scott, I guess, and Nike and what he's been able to do with that collaboration. From the SoundCloud world, you get a lot of good product. I mean, you get Lil Pump has this weed brand, but it's really just going to come from trusting themselves. And that's what Kanye is all about, right? Unfortunately now, but you got to give him credit for maintaining that's what he's about. And, it's easy when you're young and blowing up to sign to a label and do what they're going to make you do, but that is not where the cultural capital is going to come from. I think it's going to come from, and it also leads to a lot of anxiety with the kids. How many times have you seen a SoundCloud rapper say, I want out of my label deal? Or you see NBA YoungBoy saying, I want my masters back, please, please, please. It's a terrible situation to put someone in. And there was a reckoning with that whole situation with the Black Lives Matter movement. It's like, bro, you need to give your masters back to these kids who signed this deal in a shitty situation. And that's a great example of trying to take the cultural capital away from the artist and trying to re-explain it to them that this is how it works. We got your masters. It's always going to work like this. I'm here to tell you it's not how it works. And you can stay independent and do your own product. Now, whether that's a jewel wrap, whether it's a hoodie, whether it's a shoe, whether it's a weed strain, whether it's a cryptocurrency, maintain your own artistic credibility and keep the cultural capital inside. Just don't trust the outside influence.
Yeah.
I don't know if that did that answer it okay though?
Yeah, no, totally. Yeah. Just getting to the idea of like, we know your world sort of building up, cultural capital for these figures. We know my world sort of, taking community and transitioning it into a digital currency. Do you ever, how do you think these two things collide? Do you think, cultural capital can sort of be unlocked through digital currency?
Yeah, and to explain it, it definitely can. And to explain, I'm going to use a buzzword that helped launch Vice into the $6 billion. It's that word content, right? And it helps really understand stuff. Content can be one of those singles. It could be a photo. It could be a selfie. It could be a fit pic. You're creating content. It could be a recipe. It could be a TikTok. The content creator in the internet economy does not have control of how his content is distributed and commercialized and what have you. A good example, of course, is you could take a photo of Kanye and it be put in TMZ or US Weekly and you can never get credit or money or whatever. There's no way of controlling how your content is out there and how you can profit off it, which creators should profit off their content. I think YouTube has done an okay job of that. They squeeze the revenue and profit margins every year, but you know, what's the alternative if they are doing what they do? So the great thing about blockchain technology is that you can embed it in your content and give it an ID so that you have some ownership of the stuff that's on the internet. And it's taken a lot of people a while to understand this, but that is an everything realization. That is a monumental realization, to be able to have this ID, this tag, this blockchain that can link your content back to the creator and give yourself ownership and eventually profitability off your content. I haven't seen a technology like that be able to do that before. I think YouTube was a revolution for video, but what about music? And what about video? Or I just said video, but what about photos? What about selfies? What about fit pics? Fit pics are super influential, man. You know how many fashion brands I go in and I'll see a fit pic of Ian Connor on the mood board, and like say that Urban Outfitters puts Ian Connor on the mood board or puts, you know, Bloody Osiris on the mood board, and how is he ever going to get paid back from that fit pic being on the mood board when they sell, you know, $1 million worth of ripped jeans and stuff? You need to have that ownership of that content traceable back, and blockchain is the technology that'll do that. And in 10 years from now, I really do believe everyone will have to ident their content with blockchain. And it ties back into feature film too. You see the big thing this year was the Writers Guild protests and trying to come to terms between the major agencies and the Writers Guild because they're upset about packaging. And that's because eyeballs have shifted to Amazon, Netflix, and they're not getting paid per view through those deals. And it's a really off system. If those movies were identified with blockchain, you could be able to credit back how much money is being paid per view and, you know, pay those creators and writers what they're owed for their audience. Does that make any sense?
Yeah, no, completely. Yeah. And back to the idea of like turning these communities into the currency itself. Would you ever consider creating a currency for yourself or your production company, All the Smoke?
I've been considering it a long time. I think we create so much content on a daily and weekly basis, whether it's music videos, which at this pace we're doing 2 or 3 a week, whether it's feature films. We just launched one last Saturday in the form of this XXX Tentacion live film, which I'm very, very happy about. I think this came out really well, and we've been showing it every now and then, but you know, we had 4,000 viewers on Saturday watching it in the whole merch. Or whether it's a hoodie, or whether it's just some photos we're putting on our Instagram. We're putting out a lot of stuff, and there's no way on the back end to catalog and ident and categorize all that stuff that exists. The only forms available to us is put it on Instagram and get some likes. Well, I can't pay my rent off likes. No one can buy a sandwich off likes. And so, like, you know, how are we going to monetize that? And especially in the duopoly of Google, Facebook, they write the rules of how they're going to monetize your content. They'll give you got to sign up for YouTube and agree to their very strict censorship guidelines and very strict profit sharing model. So there's no real way to have ownership over your content. So been thinking forever. And, you know, Patreon's a great success story. OnlyFans is a great success story. OnlyFans is a content success story because now, you know, young women or what have you can have ownership over their content on there. And, you know, I've been searching for a while for a way to get ours.
Cool. It's amazing. Yeah. And what kind of things could someone do with Justin Staple currency or an All the Smoke currency in your world?
Yeah, well, you know, I think each world of currency should to its own universe. So, for example, when Bitcoin launched, the Winklevi and what have you, there were some coffee shops you could go in and all the tech guys could buy coffee with Bitcoin. And obviously Tesla and Elon Musk are big on crypto, and Zuckerberg is launching a Facebook one that you could use within their own ecosystem. So, you know, there's a lot of things like the Marvel universe that we're building out in the All the Smoke universe, whether it's exclusive content that you want to see from some of your favorite rappers. I mean, my good friend Chris Long has hours and hours of footage of Juice WRLD, and he actually launched OnlyFans that you could subscribe to and see exclusive Juice WRLD freestyles behind a paywall. I know a lot of young kids who would want to pay that money to see that exclusive content. And We have exclusive content like that for days and days and hours and hours. We have so much stuff to get out there. And it's not like we want to profit off that stuff, but you know, the theatrical model is dying. I think that's no joke. The cable cord cutting is happening. So what is a sustainable model to let the fans see that content when we can still make a sustainable rate to really be putting it out and having it valued? So it could be a Justin Stable Corner and All the Smoke coin could be used to purchase exclusive content. It could also be used to purchase merchandise. That's another thing. You like the brand, you want to wear the brand, you could use that crypto to buy the brand. You want an exclusive poster of a print of some dope shit I took a 6ix9ine or some dope shit from Lil Peep, you could buy a print. We've even been talking about, and you know, I got to talk to Siri about this, but maybe that coin works for a one-on-one with Siri sitting on Sing. Everyone needs a little therapy time. Everyone needs that. So maybe you purchase a little FaceTime session with the therapist himself, and all of that lives within the All the Smoke universe. So that's what could assign that crypto value. You know, what value do we assign to our own content? I think it's no secret. I have content with like Playboy Cardi, for instance, that a lot of people would like to see. I mean, that's a bad example, but let's use X as an example. There's more that, you know, this concert film's not out there yet. How do we assign value to something like that? A lot of my friends will say, just put it on YouTube. We'll get some clout. We'll get some YouTube hits. We'll get some likes. Nah, bro, we need real monetary value assigned to that content. How do we put value on that stuff? So, you know, that's what it would be all about. It would be that coin is your best rap content, your best emo content, if you're an emo kid, and just dope shit. And then also, you know, we're trying to be tastemakers and A&Rs. You want to have your record heard. Yes, Jules is killing it on OnlyFans, having people send in records and reviewing them, and also doing fitness routines on there, which is really interesting. So you want to get your record heard by All the Smoke and have them pass around at A&Rs and stuff. Maybe a little bit of that crypto helps do that. Make your dreams come true.
I love that idea. And All the Smoke currency for the All the Smoke universe. So many ways to use it.
Fuck the Marvel universe.
just zooming out, do you think there's a future where many cultural figures, artists, and creators have their own digital currency, maybe even creating like the next SoundCloud effect? How do you sort of see that world growing?
Absolutely. I think that it's a reckoning right now. I think people are starting to understand that the rules and systems in place are a bit unfair and unbalanced towards the people who wrote the rules in the first place. And that's what it's like living in America. You got to kind of obey the rules or push to rewrite them. And it's a long struggle to rewrite them, but you see it with Russ. And I don't like Russ's music, but I like what he's saying. He's going out there and saying, you don't need to sign these contracts. You can form your own career yourself. There's services like DistroKid, TuneCore. You can get your music on Spotify. You can tour. You can do it all independent. And I believe that is the future of music. You see it with Steven Stout with a company called United Masters, where he's totally rewritten the rules. He's not interested in taking your masters. He knows that you can live on. So the rules are being rewritten because you'll see with the WMG IPO and the upcoming Universal Music Group IPO, when they unveil their books, we're talking $1 billion, $2 billion revenue annually for these record labels. And then you're going to look at the artist and he can't even afford his third Cullinan. What kind of world is that? You need to make some more equity for the artist, because I'll tell you what, these labels, they ain't doing anything for you, bro. The artist is going to control. They don't know what's up. So the future is the artist taking their responsibility back into their own hands, whether it's Steven Stout, whether it's Elliot Grange, whether it's Stephen Victor with Pop Smoke. Ownership is going to become the next big wave. Russ is saying Drake should take his masters and said he would make 10 million a month if he took his masters back. And it's going to happen. I mean, no one wants to call the label and have these calls with the labels. They're going to take it back. And it's just about figuring out the protocols of ownership, figuring out how everything will be traced back to the right bank account, I suppose. And also having the government and the SEC catch up to that way of thinking, because at the end of the day, Universal and Sony have the lawyers and the artists don't, and you got to rewrite the rules. So I think right now is a reckoning where people are understanding it's an unfair system, and slowly we're going to change it.
Amazing. Justin, we went massively over time, but just one last question here.
Yeah.
What's next for All the Smoke?
Yep. What a question. What a question. Well, um, immediately we're gonna have Rod Wave, Yo Gotti, Get Your Sack Right music video. We're gonna have immediately this week Lil Gotti live performance produced by All the Smoke. We just launched the XXXTentacion Revenge 2017 tour line on shopxxxtentacion.com, co-designed by us and Bravado. Along with the movie, you're gonna have American Rapstar, which is going to be great. Hopefully that's coming to a streaming service near you. We're going to make more documentaries like that. I mean, we had a series called Targeted, which talked a lot about rappers being incarcerated and using their lyrics in the court system, like Draco the Ruler or YNW Melly or 6ix9ine. We got that in development. We have a few streetwear plays in development. I can't really talk about them, but they're going to be major. And you're just going to see a lot of dope shit. I think we have finally freed ourselves from being broke, which is dope and is a big struggle. And now you're going to get to see our full potential. I think the most tangible thing is American Rapstar and a new clothing line drop, which is going to come for the summer. We're just seeing if people actually want that. And just a slew of music videos. We got a new one with Ola Runt, which is like my favorite rapper right now. I just did one with him from Atlanta. We got a new one with Phoenix. And a few more with Shoreline Mafia and O3 Greedo. We got a new one with Chief Keef and O3 Greedo coming. So just a bunch of dope content, bunch of dope clothes, maybe some more photography work, and American Rapstar 2020. Hopefully it's out this year and not next year.
Crazy. And where can people find you and All the Smoke online?
I think the Instagram is the best. I feel like Twitter is just a shithole now. So we got a Instagram, All the Smoke Pictures on Instagram. I'm Justin Staple on Instagram. Tyler Benz is Tyler Benz on there. But All the Smoke Pictures, we've been keeping it pretty updated on there. We're going to launch a website, which will have a web store. I was really impressed with Nick Knight and Kanye's Yeezy Supply website. So we're trying to bring our web design and try to make something feel pretty cool on the website. And, that website could also have a 24/7 TV channel where we might put some content on there that people haven't seen before. And I'd say Instagram's the way. And I'm Justin Staple on Twitter, but like no one, unless I tweet like fuck Kanye or poop, my Twitter is like really dormant.
Well, Justin, this was epic. Thanks so much for stopping by Roll Radio.
Thank you, Bradley. I'm a fan of what you guys are doing. This is truly some futuristic stuff.
Let's do it.